Okay, they were taking the New Orleans Saints record. So if you watch my overrated, underrated team video, I think the New Orleans Saints are overrated. I'm not a huge fan of their roster. Obviously, the big offseason acquisition is Derek Carr. But other than that, I think they have a good run game in Alvin Kamara and a decent skill position players in Olave and Joan Johnson. Their offensive line, though, I don't think is that good. I think they're kind of average, but they aren't like the top 10 offensive line they were when Drew Brees was around. I think their offensive line is going to be a weak spot this year. And their defense, I think, is also massively overrated. Their front seven is only Cameron Jordan and Demario Davis, and then a bunch of other players. And Jordan and Davis can easily wash up this year. Their secondary is good though, or decent with Lattimore, May, and Tyrann Mathieu, but I think their front seven is kind of weak. So you have your first game versus the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee, they just got Hopkins, and DeAndre Hopkins is great. He's their centerpiece of their offense. Both these teams have decent defenses, but I think Tennessee lost a couple of pieces, but still a very good defense. But the Saints offense should have a decent day versus the Tennessee Titans defense. And even though the front seven of the Saints is pretty weak, I don't think Derrick Henry is good enough to carry the Titans offense. And I think the Saints secondary can shut down Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm taking the Saints. Then you have them versus the Panthers. Panthers, a very, very young team. Their defense is decent, good with Horn and Burns and Chin, and I think they're good enough to slow down the Saints' offense. While Panthers offense is pretty inexperienced. Their wide receivers not sure what's going on there. They have Adam Thielen, but Bryce Young and the offense is just too young. And the New Orleans Saints, even though they are not, to me, talent wise pretty similar, I think um, they have more experience. So I'm taking the Saints here. Then you have them versus the Packers. Packers, another team with a very good defense that should cause problems for the Saints. But the Packers offense, similar to the Saints, they aren't they aren't that all that good. Especially I don't know how Jordan Love is gonna do. But Packers have home field advantage, and I like Matt LaFleur more than I like Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is probably like a bottom two head coach. So I'm gonna take the Packers here. Then you have a game versus the Buccaneers. Buccaneers to me is in pretty same boat as the Saints. They have more talent, but a worse quarterback. Bucks I think have a more talented defense with guys like Antonio Winfield and Lavonte David and Vita Vea, but their offense has a worse quarterback in Baker Mayfield and a worse head coach in Todd Bowles. Not really a worse head coach, but bad head coach. But to me, I think the Bucks have the better skill position players, and the Bucks did sweep the Saints last year, so I'm taking the Bucks. Then you have a game versus the Patriots. Patriots, their team talent-wise is similar, but they have like a 10 times better coach, and to me, a better defense. And I think that coach makes all the matter, so I'm taking the Patriots. Then you have a game against the Texans. Texans brought in a bunch of new pieces. They should be better, but they're also very inexperienced, especially on defense and offense. So I'm gonna take the Saints here. Then you have a game against Jacksonville. It's a Thursday nighter, so Saints have huge home field advantage, and I mean huge home field advantage. Jacksonville offense should be very explosive. I'm not sure how well the Saints defense will match up against the Jacksonville, but they do have a good enough secondary. I think they will shut down Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. But Travis Etienne, if he goes off, I think Jaguars win. But I don't see him going off just because it's a short week, and the Jaguars defense isn't anything really special. Um, I'm gonna take the Saints here. Okay, then you have a mini bye, and then you play against the Indianapolis Colts. Colts, they do have a little bit of a talent wise, like Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard, and all that. And Colts do have home field advantage, but the Saints are coming off a mini bye. I think the Saints defense should be good enough to rattle either Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew. Either way, I think the secondary can cause problems, and the Colts don't exactly have good wide receivers. As long as the Saints defense stops Jonathan Taylor, I think the Saints offense will do just enough to get the job done, and I'll take the Saints here. Then you have a game versus the Bears. Bears to me, their Saints offense should have another decent game since the Bears have a really weak defense, even getting Tremaine Edmonds. They do have to watch out for Justin Fields though. Um, his legs can definitely dictate the game, but I think this one's going to be a close game, and I trust Derek Carr over Justin Fields, so I'm taking the Saints. Then you have a game versus the Vikings. Vikings, I think their offense cannot be contained by the Saints' defense. Their wide receiver trio of Osborne, Addison, and Justin Jefferson, I think, will cause problems for the defense. The Saints' defense, and even though the Vikings' defense isn't that good, I trust Kevin O'Connell way more than I trust Dennis Allen, so I'm taking the Vikings here. Then you have a bye. The Falcons are also coming off a bye. I think Falcons' run game will be too much for the Saints' defense to dictate. I think the Saints have a weaker run defense than they have passing defense. And I don't trust the Saints offense to get the job done, even against a weak Falcons defense. So I'm taking the Falcons. Then you have a game versus the Lions, pretty similar to the Falcons story. I don't think the Saints defense is good enough to contain the Lions, even though the Lions is more pass oriented. And I think the Lions have a better defense and better offense than the Falcons, so I'm taking the Lions here. But I do think this game will be close and Saints have home field advantage, but not close enough for the Saints obviously to win. Then you have a game versus the Panthers. At the Panthers winning or Panthers losing the first game, and I think the Panthers teams will be more experienced here, and I do think the Panthers will avoid the sweep, and I'll take the Panthers. Then you have a game versus the Giants. Saints have home field advantage. That is huge, and Giants aren't the most talented team, but they are a scrappy team, and I think Dable is a much better coach than Dennis Allen, and he'll get the job done. So I'll take the Giants here. Then you have a game versus the Rams. It's a Thursday nighter. Rams Saints have to travel all the way to the LA, and even though the Saints are a lot more talented, I think the Rams home field advantage on a short week is going to be too much. I'm going to take the Rams. Then you have them versus the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, like I said earlier, they're pretty much in the same boat as the Saints. Good defense, good skill position, but the Bucs have good defense, good skill position players, but are held back by the quarterback. While the Saints, I'm not sure how well the Saints can contain the Buccaneers, but Bucs have home field advantage. I'm gonna take the Bucs here. I'm gonna take the Bucs sweeping the Saints. You have Week 18 versus the Falcons. I do not think the Falcons are good enough to sweep the Saints. Yes, Saints defense is kind of weak to the run, at least in my opinion. But I see the Saints offense being better near the end of the season and taking care of the Falcons. So I might give it to the Saints. So in the end, at the Saints going 7-10, 2-4 in division, 4-4 at home, and 3-6 away.